Auditorium. My name is Kenneth Boudreau. I'm the City Parish Council Vice Chair representing District 4, and I thank everyone for coming out. I am also a partner in this initiative that we experience and go through tonight, No More Silence, No More Violence. I'm honored to be here and great to be your host. We do not have blue cards in effect today, and the 5-minute rule will not apply. So feel free to speak freely and speak loudly on this particular issue. I'm just so honored to be a part of this event. I just regret the fact that we've had to come to this measure to get a real voice for victims of violence, in particular domestic violence. Many of y'all may be familiar with a radio program that I do, and one of our discussions, something that came out, and I'm going to conclude with that, is that it took major marketing money. It took the threat of sponsorships, leaving the NFL, to really bring the awareness that domestic violence have deserved for quite some time. So with that springboard, Lafayette is going to be launching new initiatives. And to share some of those with us and to take us from this point forward, let us bring our lead agency in the face of domestic violence, if you would, and one of our ultimate and most, one of our greatest service providers, Faith House Executive Director, Billy Lacombe.
Thank you, Mr. Boudreau, so much for your support and with helping us with this campaign. I'd like to thank everyone for taking time out of your evening to join us tonight to discuss this very important topic. I'm Billy Lacombe, Executive Director of Faith House. I've been doing this work now for 16 years, and the message still seems to be the same. We're here tonight to launch our new campaign, No More Violence, No More Silence. This campaign is not about talking to the victim or telling her what to do. This is a challenge to our community, a challenge about the way that we think and we talk about domestic violence. This movement is to create cultural change in stopping the blaming of victims for the abuse that is perpetrated against them, not that they have caused. We want to radically change the way our systems work so that we're holding perpetrators accountable instead of victims accountable for those crimes. We are working and we want to eliminate terrorism. This is terrorism in our homes. Our families are experiencing this on a daily basis. Our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers are experiencing this. We want to end our silence, allowing each of us the opportunity to know that it's okay to speak up and to speak out about abuse in our community. For years, we've been shocked, angered, saddened, and we've looked for an explanation for this senseless crime. But we've also remained silent about it. We think it's not our business. Maybe she did something to deserve it. Or that this only happens to a certain type of person. It wouldn't happen to me. These stories are in the news every day. That's the truth about domestic violence. You could look any day of the week and see this story. But not all of the stories are told. It happens so much more often than we'll ever know. The brutal beating of Janae Rice has received an astonishing amount of publicity over the past few months. This video has played over and over in the news and online, along with plenty of commentary from bystanders with their opinions on the cause of the shocking disregard for human life that was shown by Ray Rice. This most appalling and disgusting commentary blamed Janae. They said it was her fault that she was punched in the head, that it was her fault that she was knocked unconscious, that it was her fault as her head hit the side of the elevator and she slid to the floor lifeless. People said she must have asked for it or provoked it. They said this as they watched him step over her lifeless body and then drag her with absolutely no regard for whether she was still breathing or even alive. And most sickeningly to me, they said she must have been okay with it because she went ahead and married him. What does that say about us? What kind of person says something like that? Do we just not understand? Are we so conditioned to hearing about these cases that we begin to look at the behavior of the victim rather than focusing our energy where it needs to be, on the perpetrator? Is it easier for us to blame her than to hold him accountable? What if this was your daughter? What if you saw that video playing constantly? How would you feel? Would that change your opinion of this crime? It may be shocking for you to hear this, but I was not shocked when I saw this video. The truth is, I hear Janae's story every day, every single day, from women right here in our community. It affects thousands every single year. Women who were brutally beaten, raped, and terrorized by the very person that promised to love and protect them. Most alarmingly to me is that we live alongside the perpetrators of these inexcusable crimes. They are our co-workers. They are our friends. They are our family members. They are people that we love and we care about. But we cannot continue to make excuses for their behavior and to stand by idly and watch the abuse escalate and to see women murdered. We've lost too many precious lives, and we have to make a change. Tonight, we invite you to join our movement, to publicly take our pledge: no more violence, no more silence. This is a challenge to you for personal accountability in each and every one of us. We want to look at our behaviors, at our family members, and we want to speak up, and we want to try to make a difference. That's the only way we are going to make this change. We want you to pledge to not use violence and abuse against your intimate partner, that you will speak up and say something if you know that violence is being perpetrated, that you will support the victim in whatever way she needs your support, not by giving your opinion of her situation, but by supporting her in the way that she needs. And also to change your language, to stop blaming the victim. Stop asking, why does she stay? Stop saying, she must like it. Stop blaming the victim. We have to acknowledge that abuse and violence is a choice, and it's a choice made by the abuser. They alone are accountable for their actions. They alone are responsible for stopping the abuse, and they are the only ones with the power to do that. This may seem like an impossible undertaking. This is a very dramatic change that we're asking for. But this change can start with a single person. It takes one. And after that one starts, someone else will join you. I'd like to end tonight with one of my favorite quotes from Gandhi. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. It's time for us to start winning. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy, and we appreciate those words. Next, we'll have Ralph Peters, Executive Director of the Family Violence Intervention Program.
Our agency provides some accountability for these batterers. Courts send them to us for a 26-week program of education. And I got to say, our recidivism rate, and by that I mean those who come back through the program a second time, is very, very low. It's less than 5%. We provide that accountability that these abusers need. We in civil society have to begin holding these abusers accountable for their criminal actions. We don't need to hold victims accountable for their criminal action because they don't commit any crimes. They simply try to live in a loving relationship, and they can't do it because of the batterers. So, again, we provide the Batterers Intervention Service for Lafayette City and District Court, and Department of Children and Family Services and Lafayette Family Court. I have clients from all of those agencies that come. We have about 110 clients at any one given time in the program. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Before we bring up our next speaker, we want to encourage everyone. We know time may become an issue for some. As Billy indicated, tonight we take a pledge. Each individual here has that opportunity. If you have not received a pledge card before leaving, staff will be out front in the atrium asking that you take a written pledge and you go public saying no more silence, no more violence. Our next speaker will represent our volunteer lawyers from Lafayette. We have the chairman, Mr. Jeff Coriel.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Coriel. I'm the chairman of the Lafayette Volunteer Lawyers. Lafayette Volunteer Lawyers is a local organization comprised of volunteer lawyers, and we're supported by the Lafayette Bar Association and the Lafayette Bar Foundation. One of the programs that we offer is a protective order panel, and what we do is we assign volunteer attorneys to assist victims of domestic violence. I personally assisted 50 to 100 victims, and one thing I think that is really important is that I've seen firsthand is how difficult it is for victims to relive what they've gone through and to proceed with the protective orders. To generalize, the protective order is a mechanism which allows the victims to have some comfort and to have a way to enforce protection against the abusers. In cases where there is overwhelming evidence, physical evidence, victims typically still are very hesitant to go forward, and they need support from their family and friends to encourage them to do that. I think that everyone being here tonight is a great step in the right direction, and everyone should grab a card, commit to the pledge, and do what you can to encourage victims of domestic violence, be it women, children, or the elderly, to seek help at Faith House, and in order to come to our office at the Lafayette Bar Association and ask for assistance from a volunteer. We have a great group of people who really want to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. As you can see, we have UL softball team here. Thank you so much for being here. My good friend Mike Loteef. We have other advocates. We have judiciary. We have law enforcement. But the fact of the matter is, this is truly about community. This is about regular people, individuals taking a pledge, taking a stand. Representing our community tonight, our community advocate, Ms. Tanya Boulder-Ball.
Good evening. 10 years ago, ironically, my first job after I graduated from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette was the position of client advocate at Faith House. I walked in one way and left another. You never know what a person is going through until you've heard the story. Having not been a survivor, I was thinking to say, asking why. But it's one thing I'll never do again. So I stand before you not only as an alumni of the university, not only as a community activist, not only as a board member, but I stand here as the mother of an 8-year-old daughter. And I encourage you guys to start teaching your children what healthy love is. Not only start teaching them, but being an example. We are taking this, and once you take this pledge needs to become an action. This pledge needs to go beyond the month of October. This pledge, this movement needs to become a 365-day way of doing things, because we are losing too many. So I encourage you, I beg you, be proactive. Let's not wait until another incident, until we hear about it on the news, or we're attending the funeral of a loved one who has succumbed to such violence. I encourage you, go on your high school campuses and teach them, this is what a healthy relationship looks like. This is what, and if you need resources, we are here to help you. We have to be proactive. No more violence, no more silence needs to become a way of life, not just a pledge. but a way of life. So as a mother of an 8-year-old and a college male, as a person of alumni from the University of Louisiana Lafayette, and as a person who just loves the Lafayette community, I ask you, I beg you, make this pledge become a movement beyond the month of October. Thank you.
Tanya love everybody. I think she covered everybody that love. Next we'll have Ms. Jill Dugas with Hearts of Hope.
Hi, I'm Jill Dugas with Hearts of Hope, the Executive Director, and we have 3 programs that focus on sexual violence. Unfortunately, sexual violence a lot of times goes hand in hand with domestic violence, and that's why we're here. We're here to support this campaign and to take the pledge as well. We have the Children's Advocacy Center, a Sexual Abuse Response Center, and a Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner program. And what we do for this community, we can't do without you. We need more warriors, we need more people to stand up, speak up, and do the right thing. So, thank you.
This concludes the press conference portion of our presentation tonight. Now I would like to bring up board member Ms. Lisa Lilly, and she's going to do an introduction, and they have a very special presentation for you. So Lisa.
Thank you. Man, those guys fire me up. I want you to take a little minute to remember what they said and think about it and start making some changes in your life. Another thing, I know because of what you did by listening to them, you may have some questions about this campaign. So, in your program, have I got one? There's 2 things. There's an index card, which I'd like you to write down your question. And we've got a little basket. We have a little basket that's going through the aisles. Write down your question. And at the end of this presentation, we will answer a few. If we can't answer them all, we'll have board members and staff members out there to answer your questions for you. Plus, on the other side, if you want more information on this movement, which is what I'm calling it, because I think it's a movement, put your email address and your contact information and pass it up in the bucket as well. Again, thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Why does she stay? Why does he abuse her? The truth is that abuser's violence escalates when a victim attempts to leave. The abuser stalks, harasses, physically assaults, verbally threatens, and terrorizes his victim when she leaves. We have to remember that abuse is about power and control. The perpetrator uses violence in a relationship to maintain this power and control. And when a victim leaves and the perpetrator feels that he is losing power and control, we often see the result on the news. In fact, according to the U.S. Department of Justice, victims who prepare to leave their abusive partners are at an even greater risk than when they were staying in the relationship. That's right. Leaving the abuser is actually more life-threatening than living with the abuse. In terms of statistics, the act of leaving an abuser puts a victim at 75% greater risk of being killed. My personal experience is a real good example. During my first marriage, the abuse was emotional, mental, and sexual. There was very little physical abuse. It was after we separated that the physical abuse began. He set fire to my house where my littlest child and I were asleep. He attempted to carjack me with a gun, and that is when the stalking began. So why do we ask the question, why did she stay? When we ask this question, we are making many judgments. We are assuming that victims don't leave, that they are responsible for the abuse committed against them, that they can control the abuse by removing themselves from their home, and lastly, that they are safe when they leave. In our society, unfortunately, many people still believe that domestic violence is okay. It's not my business. Or underneath it all, they think that men have the right to do as they please to women, and since the woman is with him, she must deserve or like it. I was told that by my attorney, and I was told that by my priest. All this removes responsibility from the abuser and places it on the victim. Stop blaming victims for abuse. Perpetrators are responsible for the abuse and are the only ones that can stop it from happening. No more violence, no more silence.
She takes it because of low self-esteem. Flip the script. Abuse is his choice, not a matter of her self-esteem. Abusers use many tools in order to strike down their partner's sense of self. Verbal abuse, sexual abuse, and physical abuse. Abusers make the choice to use a variety of weapons against their partners. They make their partners economically dependent by preventing them from holding gainful employment, or by making them ask for money, or to maintain a strict allowance. Perpetrators of abuse target their partner's self-worth in order to maintain control. By breaking her down, he is less likely to disobey him. She is less likely to disobey him and less likely to leave. We must remember that low self-esteem is often the result of violence. Eroding a partner's confidence is a means of control. And we must absolutely recognize the staggering prevalence of intimate partner violence. 1 in 4 women in her lifetime will experience violence. But we have focused on the number of victims long enough. Let's talk about the number of perpetrators. A recent study conducted by the University of Michigan reports that nearly 1 in 5 men have admitted to having hit, slapped, kicked, or otherwise attacked his wife or girlfriend. This is the view we don't hear about as often. The statistics from the point of view of the aggressor, not the victim. This is the number we should be talking about. 1 in 5 men use violence against their partners. Research in the field of domestic violence has shown that the perpetrator of abuse will pick up in a new relationship where they left off in terms of violence. The abuser chooses his next victim and proceeds to use abusive behavior to obtain power and control over his new victim. The abuser chooses violence. Don't allow his excuses for the violence to validate the abuse. He makes the choice. No more violence, no more silence.
She just wants custody of the kids. Flip the script. Abusers use children to control the victim. Perpetrators of abuse use children as a threat to the victim's well-being and security. They use children to amplify fear of leaving. During visitation exchanges, abusers will threaten, physically assault, and/or verbally abuse the victim. This exchange becomes a time of grave danger and fear for the victim and the children. The violence does not permanently end when the victim is out of the home. The children continue to witness violent acts as the abuser moves on to a new relationship, or the children become the victims of abuse. Abusers will use visitation time with the children to plant negative thoughts and ideas about their mother so that they will side with him and begin exhibiting disrespectful behavior to their mother. The victim knows this and is reaching out for assistance with keeping herself and her children safe by requesting custody and protection. In several instances, the abuser does not play an active role in the rearing of the children. It is only when the victim leaves that abusers attempt to gain custody or visitation as a tactic to get closer. With this, he can attempt to regain the control by requesting to see the children, constantly stalking and harassing the victim, filing for custodial rights. Abusers know that by gaining custody of the children, they will force the victim to return to the home, reconciling with the abuser in order to protect her children. In addition, research shows that in 50% of homes where domestic violence is present, children are also being victimized. Children who grow up with violence in their homes are denied their right to a safe and stable home environment. How can we teach our children to engage in healthy relationships that are about love, not control, when they're exposed to it on a regular basis? Abusers who choose to use violence in their home cannot continue to influence their children and promote the cycle of violence. We can give our children a chance if we hold abusers accountable for abusive behaviors. No more violence, no more silence.
Why didn't she tell someone? Let's flip the script. Why does he use threats to keep her silent? Abusers take away the tools that their partners would otherwise use to seek help. That's how intimate partner violence works. It reduces victims to complete dependency so that the abuser gains total control over his partner's body and decisions. By engaging in verbal abuse, like putting her down, calling her names, making her think she's crazy, and humiliating her, abusers erode their partner's self-confidence. By controlling what she does, who she sees and speaks to, what she reads, where she goes, they create barriers between their partners and their social networks, making it difficult to maintain valuable friendships and leading to her isolation. By intimidating her, by destroying her property, and by displaying weapons and fists, abusers render their victims in a silent state of fear. By threatening to kill himself or to report her to welfare agencies or making her drop the charges, abusers are able to maintain their power in her silence. By understanding the cycle of abuse, we can understand why a victim might have trouble reporting the crime. Domestic violence is one of the most underreported crimes. Only approximately 1/4 of all physical assaults, 1/5 of all rapes, and 1/2 of all stalking perpetrated against women by intimate partners are reported to the police. Our communities must make a greater effort to make reporting possible. We must step in and speak up when the victim is not able to do so herself. We have to believe the victim and not accuse her of causing the abuse. We cannot shame the victim, take away her children, accuse her of causing the abuse to happen, arrest her for defending herself, or demean her with our opinion about what she should do. This is how we keep victims silent. We must be a voice for change. No more violence, no more silence.
Why does she provoke him? Please flip the script. Why does he make excuses? Provocation. Batterers use provocation to justify their criminal acts. She didn't have supper ready. She didn't have the kids ready for bed. The house was dirty. All kinds of excuses they make why they use violence. They try to justify their criminal behavior by pointing out non-criminal behavior on the victim's part. None of the things I've mentioned are a crime, or even close to a crime. If a judge were to hear that in a trial, well, I beat her because she didn't have my supper ready. That would result in a guilty verdict, right, Judge? So, why does he think that society is going to excuse his criminal actions because of her behavior, her non-criminal behavior. We cannot, as a society, allow batterers to blame their victims for their crimes. Their actions are the crimes, not the actions of the victim. No more silence, no more violence.
Before we move on to our next phase, we just want to recognize a few people. First of all, we want to thank all the media partners. All the majors are here. We thank you for coming out because this is going to be a very important step. But would like to especially thank the Acadiana Open Channel and my good friend Ed, because that's how you match what the majors do, is by having a network that could play it over and over and over again. They've had their opportunity, and I know Ed is going to see that what's happening here today is able to play over and over and over again. So Ed, if you would mind, please let's thank AOC. And part of our challenge is going to be incorporating the media and asking you to give this the appropriate coverage at the appropriate time so as many people as possible can see. Also, we'd like to recognize any law enforcement officers. We know law enforcement responding to these issues play a very, very important part. Any officers in the audience, would you please stand and be recognized? Of course, we got advocates who stand in the gap for people who cannot represent themselves. Any and all advocates who are here at this time, would you please stand and be recognized? We already recognize the judge, but the judge is here, and I think it's appropriate because if you don't have the proper knowledge at each and every level, that's where these cases get dropped. So along with the judge, any additional judiciary who is here today, would you please stand and be recognized? This was important enough for you. And last but certainly not least, let's recognize now, we're not done, but let's recognize now the Board of Faith House. Please, the board, raise your hand where you are and please be recognized. At this time, I want to bring up Ms. Sarah Ritchie, who's a UL student, who is going to wrap up this session that just took place and move into our question and answer.
Thank you. That is 100% accurate. I'm a UL student and I enrolled in biology 110. And I'm also president-elect of the Board of Directors of Faith House of Acadiana and a member of the faculty at UL in the history department. Thank you to everyone who's here, to our panelists, to you for being here, and to the remarkable staff of Faith House of Acadiana. Since the release of the Ray Rice video and the greater public attention to domestic violence, the Faith House hotline has received a flood of phone calls from concerned family members and friends seeking help. We are invigorated by these phone calls. We're invigorated by these voices and by the refusal to tolerate violence. When we say no more violence, we do not refer, when we say no more violence, no more silence, we do not refer to the silence of the victims who are often literally muzzled and cannot speak for themselves. We refer to us, to our community, and to our need, our responsibility to speak and to break the silence. We must, as a community, commit to being active bystanders. We all play a role in preventing gender-based violence. How do we make that commitment? We make that commitment by knowing the facts about violence. Knowing the dynamics of power and control enables us to step up and to speak out when we hear attitudes that blame survivors for violence, for the perpetuation of violence. If you hear someone blaming a victim, shift the focus back to the abuser, back to the actions of the offender, where it belongs. Our attitudes about gender-based violence and our responses to survivors matter. They matter deeply. And this is why we ask you to take the pledge, which you will see when you exit the room. You can take this pledge. Against domestic violence, I, Sarah Ritchie, pledge not to use violence against my intimate partner. I will speak up if I know violence is being perpetrated. I support victims and will not use victim-blaming language. I know that violence is a choice made by abusers, and they should be held accountable for their actions. The panelists are now going to take a few questions from the audience, and if we've got several questions. If we're not able to answer yours right now due to time, we will be, the board and the staff of Faith House will be outside able to answer your questions. So one question here is, how do I get protection? Are there legal services available?
Short answer is yes. I hope that question was before I spoke earlier. As I said earlier, the Lafayette Volunteer Lawyers have numerous programs, and one of our programs is the Protective Order Panel, and we have a partnership with Faith House. So if you are a victim, or if you know someone who's a victim, you can go to Faith House and meet with representatives there who can contact lawyers who represent you, or you can go to the Lafayette Bar Association. We generally have a policy that we turn no victims of violence away. So if you are a victim, we will help you. We will assign an attorney to represent you. We will walk you through filing the paperwork. If you have any other issues with developing evidence, we will help you. We will help you secure witnesses. We will help you secure police officers. We will help you obtain documents. We do everything that we can to get you prepared to try your case. As I said earlier, it's very difficult on the victims, especially when they're forced to confront the abusers, and we will do the best that we can to support you through that process.
And just very briefly, we did speak for a few moments about Faith House's services, but we certainly do provide services to survivors in 7 parishes, from Vermilion all the way up to Rapides Parish in Alexandria. Those services include a 24-hour hotline, so people can call at any time of the day or night and speak to one of our trained advocates. Also, we provide shelter services, counseling, support groups, advocacy, and many, many other services to help victims obtain safety.
At Hearts of Hope, we provide advocates at the 5 local hospitals in Lafayette Parish to go out and sit with somebody while they actually have a kit done, to notify them what the legal process is, to kind of just be a sense of support for them through that traumatic event. We also have advocates that work with them to kind of help them, guide them through the process. We also have nurses who are forensically trained to gather evidence. They do it in a more compassionate way because they know how to obtain the evidence, maintain the chain of custody. We have a 24-hour crisis line that you can also definitely call if you need some kind of advice or help. And then we have counseling not only for our survivors of sexual assault, but also to family members and support persons so that we can get the family back to maximum functioning.
Do abusers change?
Yes, many of them change. At the end of our program, we ask these men, and we do have a women's group also, we ask them to fill out a graduate survey. And the last thing on the survey, we ask them what they learned in the program, what they think of the program. And invariably, it starts out with the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I didn't want to be there, I was mad, I blamed her for sending me here. But then I began to listen, and what I heard was my story from the other men in the class. So I got to say, with a less than or around the 5% recidivism rate, I think many of these men who go through the batteries intervention program do change because they're not coming back through it.
And just to sort of piggyback on what Ralph said, again, abuse is a choice. So abusers can make a choice to stop abusing. One of the strange things that happen in domestic violence relationships is that often the abusers will make a choice to change as the victim is leaving. Once she returns, the behavior begins again. So, you know, whenever Ralph talks, which Ralph has an amazing program that really does focus on 26-week intensive program, focuses on helping abusers to change their behaviors, to change their choice-making or decision-making abilities, really focusing in on helping them to do that. But they have to want to do it, and they have to want to do it for the right reason, not to keep the victim in the relationship, which unfortunately happens all too often. They have to make the choice to stop abusing because it's wrong and because it's hurting the person that they say they love. So we must remember that when we're talking about abusers making those changes.
And final question, is FVLP and anger management the same?
Absolutely not. It's FVIP, Family Violence Intervention Program. Anger has little, if anything, to do with domestic violence. Domestic violence is plainly and simply about power, and about control. About the control a person, an abuser exhibits over his partner, or her partner. And as we've heard earlier tonight from Dr. Brabant, the most serious time is when they leave, because guess what? They've lost control when they leave. So it's not about anger management. Many jurisdictions like to sentence abusers to anger management programs. Anger management programs has nothing to do with domestic violence.
Just want to acknowledge someone again. It's so important to make sure that, as a baseball analogy, we have all bases covered with these issues to make sure that no errors are in fact made. We do have with us actually a friend of mine, I didn't know she was here, Janet Perridan is in the office. Janet, would you please stand? Janet, of course, is a prosecutor. And as these issues move toward court, it's important that we have prosecutors in place who really understands these issues. So Janet, thank you for coming out as well.
All right, thank you to our panelists, and thank you to you. You've already taken this first step in making this movement really happen. So thank you for being here. We invite you into the hall for cake and for a photo opportunity while you take the pledge.
We also ask, please look at the inside cover of your program. There's a schedule of events.
The preceding program was made possible in part with production assistance provided by AOC Community Media.